Hello and welcome to the Wicker Library. This is my little corner of booktube and my name is Aaliyah, and today I will be recommending some romance books. Now, romance is a genre that I love a lot, but I'm very particular about my romance books and which ones I like, and I think a lot of that actually has to do with my love language and if it applies to the book I'm reading. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting to recommend some of my favorite romance books and have them categorized into love languages that the book most fits. And a lot of these, bear in mind that they fit a multitude of love languages, but I have organized them into more or less categories that stick with their main love language. So in case you're not familiar with the 5 love languages, I'll link the main test or quiz below that most people I know take to see kind of what applies to them, just so you could know, because it's always kind of fun to learn a little bit about you through little tests like that. So there is acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, and gift giving. But I do want to start with acts of service, which is my bias. So acts of service is my main love language, both receiving and giving. I eat that shit up, especially in a romance book. Acts of service and tropes that align with that love language is just my shit. The first book I want to talk about is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. Now, a bunch of Talia Hibbert's books could fit into the acts of service love language, which is probably why I love them so much, but Act Your Age, Eve Brown just takes the cake in forms of this love language. There is so much caregiving and just listening to each other's needs and expressing each other's needs in the romantic relationship. And the whole trope that's going on here is that one of the love interests is injured, and then the other love interest, or the main character in this sense, has to take care of that person or help them out in some ways. And it makes me so happy because it's such a healthy relationship, and it's so funny and it's so cute, and the care that these characters have for each other is expressed so well, and the communication is so good, and the banter is so great, and I would highly, highly recommend this book for people who love romance but also really get hit in the feels by acts of service. The next book that I felt fit this category the most was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and this book is phenomenal. It is one of the most heartbreaking romance books I've ever read, while still being really funny and lighthearted at times, and the romance is just chef's kiss. I love it so much, and every single one of the characters in this book is just everything to me. But acts of service really manifests itself in this book by the way that the characters just love each other so much, and they express that by just being there for one another and being there for when they need them or when they don't need them, or just listening and communicating and doing things without being asked to is something that happens so much in this book. And just knowing someone on that level where you just get it and you get them and you know what they need and what would help in a situation, or how to make the food that they like, or how to help them clean the house or help take care of their kid, or just helping people out. And especially when you're in love with them, it hits so hard, and this book was phenomenal. And it's also easily one of the best written romance books I've ever read. The writing is just gorgeous. Speaking of gorgeous writing, my next recommendation is Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. And this book was phenomenal. I cannot wait to reread this book. I don't know when I will, but hopefully I will soon, probably before his next book Small Worlds. I forget which title is correct, but I've pre-ordered that. Before I read that one, I will probably reread Open Water. But Open Water is another example of specifically a friends to lovers trope, which is also one of my favorite things. But what makes this one so different and why it fits into this category so well is just the deep knowing of each other and wanting to care for and just wanting to ease the pain of someone else without wanting to fix them necessarily, because that's a trope that I can see people loving, and I understand why, but I've never really liked the idea of fixing someone. So this book does a fantastic job of having the characters learn from each other and grow with each other and take care of each other, but not in a way that feels like they need to be fixed. And it is just so beautiful, and it's so poetic and lovely, and I can't wait to reread it. Now, my final book in this acts of service category, the best category, is The Wicker King by Ancrum. It is my all-time favorite book, and that is because I relate to the character of August so deeply and so profoundly. And August, his main love language is for surely acts of service, and that trope shines so bright in this book, in the ways that he cooks for his friends, in the ways that he cares for his friends, and it is not always a healthy depiction, which is so true of what happens in real life. You know, it's not always so easy, and it's not always so beautiful to be taking care of someone you love. Sometimes it can be really hard on someone, and sometimes this book is a great example of it, but sometimes you need to ask for help in taking care of someone else. So this book isn't necessarily a romance book. I wouldn't categorize it as such, but I did want to put it here just because it fits the prompt so well. Moving on to the second love language, which is also my second love language. In the test that I take in order to see, what percent of each I get, quality time is my next most. And the first book for quality time that I have is another Talia Hibbert book, of course, and that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, the one and only. And this book fits acts of service really well, but I didn't put it in there because Eve Brown fit it more. And Get a Life, Chloe Brown, one of the main plot points is that she's writing a list of all the things she wants to do, and then her love interest helps them do those things. And it's so cute, and it's so funny, and that book brings me so much joy. And they just love to spend time together, even if it's doing little things or even if it's doing nothing. They love to spend time together, and it is such a beautiful thing. The next book I want to talk about for this love language is Blackout, and it's an anthology by various authors. I'll link all the information below. I can't list all of the authors off the top of my head, but it was such a fun anthology, and the whole premise is that a blackout happens in New York City, and then it goes into these flashes of different lives, and there's a romance in each one, and it's just a collection of romantic short stories, and it's so queer and so beautiful, and all of the characters are so wonderful. Most of the characters are so wonderful, and it's a really great time. But the whole premise is that these characters are thrust into situations of forced proximity or spending time together to get home in a blackout thing, all different versions, but it's all quality time. And there's other love languages mixed into there, as with life and any kind of relationship with anybody, but quality time and blackout just work so good together. The next book that I wanted to put into this category was The Way to the Stars by Ancrum. Of course, I have two Ancrum books on here. That should be a surprise to nobody, but The Way to the Stars is such a sweet story. And again, it's not totally a romance, but it has a romance in it, so that counts in my head. But this book fits this love language so well because they will literally, the two girls in it that are having a relationship, they really just love to be in each other's company. And it is so sweet and it's so beautiful that someone could be in love with someone else and just need to be next to them in order to feel loved by them. And it was so beautiful. The final book I want to talk about is actually a manga series by Tamifull, and that is How Do We Relationship. And this is one of my favorite series of all time. I still have a couple volumes to read, and I'm really trying to get them. They're kind of a pain in the ass to get a hold of, but they're still being printed, and the series is not over, and it's really well written. It's the only series where miscommunication is a trope that I don't hate, because it's done so well and so realistically. And the two characters in this series have a lot of things going on with them, but anytime they're with each other, you can see that what both of them enjoy so much about being together is just being next to one another, doing things with one another, even if it's just going to class, or even if it's, going on dates. It could be things like that, but they just love being together. And some conflicts arise when some have different love languages. So one of the characters definitely has physical touch as one of their love languages, while the other definitely does not. And so it's a pretty good portrayal of what happens when, you're not on the same page with your partner, which happens. Next, we have words of affirmation. And this is a love language that is not high on my list. I don't really feel much for this, but I do enjoy seeing it in books that I read. I think I categorize words of affirmation as good communication, and I know that's not necessarily what it is alone, but it is something that I feel is important. And so the first book on this list is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by, you guessed it, Talia Hibbert. Now, I promise this is the last book of Talia Hibbert's on this list, because I really could make the whole list her books, but I will not. And the reason Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute fits this so well is that these characters love to talk to each other. They love to affirm one another, and they're so good about communicating each other's wants and needs through just talking, texting, whatever it may be. And they're really affirming to one another. They talk about things that bother them, even if it takes a couple chapters for them to work up the courage. They always do. And it's beautiful, and it's so healthy, and it's so sweet, and it's one of my favorite YA books of all time now. The next book that I put onto this list is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And I thought this book fit really well because one of my favorite aspects of this story is the emails that the two love interests send back and forth. And they're just really good about talking about, again, wants and needs and all that good stuff. But they're just really good at talking to each other. And the majority of the relationship is long distance. And so words of affirmation can always really be shown in relationships like that. And I think the book is just a beautiful portrayal of this love language. The final book on my words of affirmation subgenre is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This was a really sweet book that I loved. I loved it after I sat with it for a while. When I finished it, I thought I only liked it, but then it kind of stuck in my head and I was like, oh, I liked that a lot more than I thought. But it's a really sweet sapphic relationship going on, and categorizing this one as a romance is how it's marketed, and I think it's also why a lot of people didn't enjoy it, because the romance is actually not front and center. It is a plot point and it is important, but it's much more about a story of the main character's mental health journey and her relationship with her family, and that's why I loved it so much, because as much as I do enjoy a good romance every once in a while, I am still aroace, and sometimes a romance just doesn't hit, and I'm like, I don't care that this is here. Why is it here? So I do like it when it's kind of a subplot rather than a main plot. But Honey Girl fits the words of affirmation really well because in a way, the characters romance starts really taking off once they start communicating to one another and affirming that their feelings are real and existent. And they do that a lot throughout the story, just communicating that they do like each other and they do grow to love each other, and it's really, really sweet. So the second to last category we have is physical touch. And this, as far as my love languages go, is not very high on it. Again, asexual, so it's never really front and center for me. But with my friendships in life, like, I enjoy a good hug. I enjoy good cuddles every now and again. So I can appreciate a cute romance with physical touch as a front and center sort of love language. But the first book or series I have to recommend is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is obviously the Netflix TV show, but the comics are closer to my heart personally. And I think these comics are just such a beautiful example of physical touch being a love language, and it just being so innocent and so sweet. And you could just see that love is just at the front and center of this relationship, and that they just care about each other so much. And it's really, really sweet to just see it all drawn out in Alice Oseman's amazing art style, and it just warms my heart. And rereading these comics and the printed books and rewatching the show is always such an act of self-care for me anytime I kind of need a pick-me-up. So I had to recommend this in the category of physical touch. The next book I wanted to put into physical touch is not quite a romance book either. So I know I'm kind of cheating for a lot of these, but romance book recs fits better in the title, so you're gonna have to deal with it. But I want to recommend Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendes. And this book is so beautifully written. It was something that I read and again had to sit with to really, really enjoy. So, go into it knowing that. There's some other reviews of the book out there that do a much better job than me, so I'm not going to even attempt to review the book. I haven't been doing that with any of them, so I hope you didn't expect that. But Rainbow Milk fits this prompt really well, I feel, because it goes into depth about intimacy and what intimacy can mean for somebody, and it's just so beautifully written, the ways that the character goes through loneliness and relationships and just wanting to at times just feel held. And it's so beautiful, and it just made so much sense for this prompt, so I had to recommend it. But do know going in that it's not a romance book. It has romantic relationships and sexual relationships in it, but it is by no means a romance book. Now, the final category is gift giving. And unfortunately, I do not have much to deliver on this front, because this is my last ranked love language. I do not do well with gift giving or receiving. Gift giving stresses me out so much, and the only gifts I like to receive are ones where it's like, oh, I got you chocolate because I know you like this chocolate when I was out today. And I recently learned that that even fits more so in acts of service anyway. So gift giving is just such a stressor for me. So I have never really read many romance books with it as a main love language, but I could think of one, and it is probably not just one of, but maybe my favorite romance book of all time, and it's You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. And this book is so good, okay? Gift giving is an aspect of it, and it's an aspect of one of the characters and like ways to express love, but it also has acts of service in it. It has physical touch for sure. It has quality time. It has words of mouth. It has all of it, okay? It is such an accessibly loved book. I know that's not a real phrase, but I'm deciding that it is. But You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty has a fantastic amount of messiness and humor and heartbreak and tears and grief, and then sexiness as well. And it's just such a good time, and I cannot recommend this book more. So that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some fun little recommendations. And again, feel free to comment below anything at all, any recommendations, any critiques. If you have very strong feelings about where I placed any of these, I would love to know, because it took way too long to place them myself, so I'm easily swayed, I will say. And until next time.